Okay, let's start by installing Visual Studio here. So opening up my browser, Visual Studio 2022. Note the Visual Studio is different than VS Code. So download the version we want. I'm guessing download seems like the right thing. Come on now. I just want to install it. Oh, there it is. Guess it does it for you as soon as you hit the button. Alright, minimize this. Click yes. Minimize that. Alright, continue. Alright, this is going to run for a bit. I'll pause the recording and come back. Okay, so once it completed, it came up with this screen. We want to find something to do with C++. Is there a C++? Anything here? Oh, here we go. What's this all about? C++ 2022? Is there something in workloads here with C++? Oh, there's desktop development with C++. That sounds like a winner. Build modern C++ apps for Windows using tools and blah, blah, blah. I think that's what. Let's try that. Includes a bunch of stuff. I'm just going to... Oh, I think this was mentioned in the notes. Needed Windows 11 SDK. So that looks really good. Install while downloading and click install. Alright, we'll let that gonna run. It's probably gonna take 5-10 minutes and then we'll come back at the end. Okay, so once the install is done in the background there, you come into this sign-in window. I don't think you need to do this, so we'll skip it for now. Choose your layout. I'm not a fan of dark mode. I know, whatever. I choose light. I think that is it for Visual Studio. Yeah, you're ready to go here. So I'll end this segment here, and we'll continue on in the next one. Okay, so one piece that wasn't covered in the README file is you need a Git client. So let's just get a basic one. Git, of course, allows you to pull from GitHub. So let's see if we can find a Git client. This looks fine. Download for Windows. Standalone. This looks fine. Downloading. And let's see how this goes. Click that. Close this window. Say yes. And next. 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 Wow, lots of questions. All right. So far we've installed Visual Studio, and now we're installing Git. We still have to pull in the source codes, and that should do it. We'll finish this off here. There we go, and finish. Alright, on to the next step. Okay, so we've cloned xLights into our own GitHub. Now let's bring it down to our PC for development. By default, the directory is users, your username, source, repo, so we'll just go with the default. You might want to put it on your root folder somewhere, or whatever works for you is fine. So open up a command window, go to source, go to repos, and now we're going to go to the README file and grab the GitHub for WX Widgets. Now note that as of this video, the GitHub tells you to grab from branch 2023-02. That is incorrect. So let me just show you what this is talking about. So go to GitHub and go to xLights. Go to go back into a folder. We should see WX Widgets here. There we go. We want to get the latest branch that xLights is using. And if you click on the tags, you can see that the latest one we're using is 2024-01. So as of this video, it's 2024-01. So we're going to use that branch. So go here. You could use the master, but I would suggest if you're doing development, use what xLights is currently using, or is what the developers have deemed to be the most stable version. So that's it. We've just changed the branch there, as you see. Everything else is from the README. I'm going to hit enter, and if everything is good, we see it's created the folder up here, and it's going to go and download all of the software. So we're going to let that run and then come back to the video. This may take 5-10 minutes or more based on your internet speeds and such. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes or so, and it completed fine. So that was the Git portion for WX Widgets. All right, so when you're working on xLights, you have to work on a copy of the xLights source code in your own GitHub. You're not working on the actual xLights developer's code. So what you need to do is go to the xLights GitHub site. And I'm sure you already know how to get there because you're probably following the README file. We want to go to code. Here we want this link here. There's a little quick browser button there to grab it in there. Then you want to go to your GitHub. Now this will be oops, GitHub. This will be. I really can't do it properly because I am. I've already got a copy in here. But be sure and make sure you're logged in. Go to repositories, create new. Then you want to use the import here at the top. And then you would paste in the value that we had. Now, you normally would just say xLights, but since I already have one, I'm going to say xLights new and begin import. Again, you wouldn't want to have xLights new. You probably would call it exactly the same, just to avoid confusion. And you let that copy. So when you're done, you'll have a copy of the xLights source code on your GitHub. The one, of course, is always on the xLights GitHub. And then you're going to make a copy in the next steps onto your PC. So let this finish. Okay, so now we are going to pull in the xLights Git source. So once again, we'll open up a command window. Let's move to the right directory. By default, it goes into your source and repo. You should have your WX widgets in here by now. So now let's get the command from the README. It's git clone recurse submodules, meaning it will also pull in the various dependencies that it needs. And github.com. Now it's going to, we want to grab it from your copy that you've cloned into your GitHub account, because you can't commit to xLights itself. You want to make changes on your code and then make pull requests and such. So clone recurse submodules. All right, there we go, and hit enter. And if that's, there we go, it's created the folder. So we're going to let that run again, probably 10 or 15 minutes or however long it takes, and we'll finish the cloning operation for that. That finishes the cloning operation. You can see it's created the second folder there, so we're good to go. The next step on the README is to compile the WX Widgets code. So let's see if we can do that. Open a project or solution, WX Widgets, and looking at the README file, it wants us to go to build, MSW, And then WX Widgets VC17. I think that's like 2017 or something like that. It's the most recent version of the solution file, so I think that's all we need. Click on Open. And if it's working properly, we should get a couple of build icons here on the right-hand side. And let's finish it loading. Not seeing the build operations. All right, well, it's there. Let me see if there's a way to add the tabs. I thought there'd be a tab here. Toolbar options, add or remove buttons, build, build. All right, I don't see it, but that's what we want. Anyway, it says to build a debug version and a release version, so we'll start with debug. So click on build, build solution, and away it goes. Now this is going to be quite a while to do this. It's basically going to compile every one of the C programs, C++ programs, and build the libraries. So we'll pause the recording again and come back, and then we will go to the next step, which would be to build the release version. That finished. While that was running, I took a look, and there should be an option here. It says Customize, and we want the Build toolbar. I find that's handy. So put that in there. All right, so that was the debug version. Now let's go to the release version. Same thing, and click on the Build solution, and let that complete. That finished there. So while we're in Visual Studio, there's another option that you probably want to do is under Tools, Options, Tools, Options, Text Editor, expand that out, All Languages, turn on line numbers for all languages, or you can specifically go down to C++ and do that there. Line numbers, make sure that's what you have for C++. You'll find that's handy when you're doing your coding. Last thing, looking at the README here, it says to go into System Properties. So System Properties. How about edit System Environment Variables. Go to Environment Variables. Go to System Variables here on the bottom. Say New. And we want to create one called WX Widgets underscore root. WX Widgets underscore root. And we're going to click the Browse Directory. And we're going to point to our source directory, which was this PC, C drive, users Daryl, source code, and repo, and it wants the WX Widgets directory. Let me confirm that. Where it was installed. Yes, so it wants the WX Widgets. Click OK, click OK, click OK, and that is it. So that's it for this step. For this step, it's going to build and compile xLights. So let's exit this one first, close solution, and we're going to say open a solution right here. We're going to go to the repo, xLights. Let me check the directory to be specific here, xLights, xLights again. And then we're looking for a solution file right there. Click open. It says build it in x64 debug mode. So x64 there, debug mode there. We've added these new buttons. So once it's done loading, looks like it has, we should be able to click build solution. And away it goes. So as long as you have gotten the GitHub down, install Visual Studio++, you got your GitHub, this should compile cleanly. So let this finish. And now we will do the release version. Pretty uneventful. And build solution. There we go. Okay, the stuff has been built. Next step, it says we need to copy a few files over here. So let's look into that. So it says go into the xLights folder, the bin directory. It says once built, copy the contents of these two folders in the order below. So we're going to Control A, Control C, and we're going to go back to xLights, x64. What are we looking at? I'm not seeing it. Oh, xLights, xLights, x64, debug. All right, so it says to copy the bin, and if you do a release, okay, we're not doing a release build. We'll right click and we'll paste, and we'll replace everything. And then it says copy the contents of the xLights bin 64. So let's go back xLights, bin 64, and we're going to do Control A here, Control C copy, go back to there, and go to xLights, and we'll go to x64, debug, and we'll paste here, replace. Alright, so that is everything looking back on the README. Everything we've got here. Yeah, I think so. That looks right. Now, one piece that isn't talked about too much here is the use of code blocks. Code blocks is the software they use for the layout portion of it. And what happens is you make changes in code blocks, it interjects or inserts the code that is currently used in xLights. So let's grab that software. The README goes on about how you can compile it in code blocks, but apparently the developers don't really do that anymore. They just use it for the layout portion. So don't worry too much about that piece. We're just going to show you how to install code blocks. It's really quite straightforward. It wants us to use 20.03, and we should be able to get from here. Let's see how it works. The setup, yeah. Does that work? Okay, it's downloading. There we go. Click on that. We should be able to install it. Yes. I will close this in the background. Click next. Allow. Next, next, next. Straightforward install. Again, in the README, it talks about doing stuff on compiling it. Don't bother. Ming W, don't bother with any of that stuff. We're just using the software strictly for layout management. Do you want to run code blocks? Say no. And next, and finish. We should end up with a thing there for code blocks. That's easy there. All right, let's put it all together now and run our debugged version. So we have the two solutions. One is the WX Widgets solution, which we probably never need to rerun it again, recompile it, unless there's been a significant update in WX Widgets. Here is our xLights solution, and we have the option here of debug and release. For us, we probably normally just use the debug version. You have two options of how to run it in using a slower debug version where you can put breakpoints and such, or you can run it in release version, which is doesn't give you the breakpoints and such. At least that's how I understand it anyway. So we've already compiled it once earlier, so I'm assuming this will be fairly quick to start up. And there it is, it kicked it off. And this will be just like starting xLights from scratch. And show folder, etc. So I already previously ran this, so it didn't ask me for a show folder, but it'd be just like starting xLights for the first time. You have to create a show folder, etc. Layout. You see the green border? That tells you you're running in debug mode, so you'll know it's you're in debug mode. It's going to be running a little slower. So just to let you know. Yeah, everything else is the way you would normally expect it. You can do things, again, I'm not an expert on all things Visual Studio, I'm still learning myself, but you have the ability to create breakpoints and see variables, etc., etc. Um, that's it for installing. Maybe I'll do a series on how to actually build xLights if I can figure that out myself. So stay tuned on that. But thanks for following along. And if you have problems or questions, you can try in the Facebook or in the Zoom room. And I'm not sure how many people know how to do all this stuff at this point, but be sure and double check and reread over the README on the GitHub in xLights for all the nuances of doing this building of xLights. So good luck and feel free to give it a try.